SaaS Therapy.
Welcome to SaaS Therapy, the show devoted to helping you save your most important business relationships, your customers. My name is Casey Trujillo. Normally, I'm joined by Todd Kirk, but for this 8-part series, I'm doing this solo. I apologize about that. For those that you attended the podcast with myself and Todd, where we went through MEDDPICC, we were very general in covering that. In this 8-part episode, we are covering each one of the modules to help you get a better understanding of MEDDPICC. And where we are at today is we are in the decision-making criteria. Whew, okay, so as we're going through the decision-making criteria, what is different between this and the process is the criteria is how the organization will decide if you've been successful. Like what are the measurables that you needed to hit in order for them to feel like they should renew with you again. The process is how they approve it, right? How does everybody evaluate it? But the criteria is what's the actual input output, okay? So as we're thinking through this and we're working with your point of contact and we're trying to figure out, okay, what does that criteria look like? Again, questions are some of the most important things that you can possibly do. I remember this fantastic meme one time. And what it had was it had all these little dots. And if you remember, if you're as old as I am, you used to have books like this where they'd have all these dots. And if you lined the dots correctly, it would make out some image, right? And basically what you were trying to do is connect the dots. The decision-making criteria is doing just that. It is connecting the dots of the value you bring to the business results that the customer is looking for. But you're having to help the customer make sure that the data that's being provided is connecting those dots for that decision-making criteria. So again, as always, we want this to be actual. We want to give you real-world questions that you can ask that have been tried and proved to help draw out that decision-making criteria. Okay, so let's get started. Question number 1 that I would be asking around decision-making criteria is customer. Last year when we renewed, the criteria for renewal was X, and I would walk through those things and how you accomplish that. I would then say for this year's renewal, is the criteria similar or is the criteria different? Okay, now here's the best part. You gave them an option. Is it similar or is it different? If they say it's similar, my next question is, how so? If it's different, my question, follow-up, is how so, right? Describe it to me. I need to make sure that you're still understanding what the same success metrics were if you said it's similar. If it's different, I need you to explain how is it different, right? That's one of the key components of this. Now, you're going to see how the decision-making criteria and the decision-making process go hand in hand. So if you'll remember in the last module that we covered in the decision-making process, we asked the question of, as we review the criteria, who are the people that will be involved in making that decision? It sounds like from the feedback I've heard during this year that this renewal might be up for jeopardy. Now, again, notice how I asked that question. You might think, Casey, that's way too bold. But one of the things that we're looking for, and again, big fan, Todd and myself, big fan of Chris Voss, who wrote a book called Never Split the Difference, is he's actually wanting your customer to say no. Because we all love to say yes because it doesn't make anyone feel bad usually, right? If I say yes to something, I still might not want to do it or I won't do it, but I'm just trying to get you to stop asking me questions, right? A no helps me understand, well, oh gosh, you're actually not happy, or that was something that you disagreed with. Now we can actually have a conversation to understand what's taking place. So asking that question around, hey, it sounds like this renewal might be in jeopardy, and being okay in saying that, I know that sounds counterintuitive as a customer success manager, but by saying that, they either said, oh, no, we're fine. Yeah, this is, I'm feeling good about this. Oh, why are you feeling good? Or they'll say, yeah, you're kind of right. Okay, do you know how they're gonna judge us against the other SaaS applications that you're bringing in? Have they set that criteria, and who's giving that input? Have you been able to provide some input around that? Because what you're trying to do is control the narrative so the dots that get connected go back to the strengths and the business value that you're actually presenting, right? It also might reveal that your customer doesn't understand your total product. How many times have you come to find out after your customer has bought something else that they bought another SaaS application when you had a module that you could have upsold to your customer to answer that specific challenge that they had? But they just said, "Oh, I had no idea you had that. Had you told me that? Oh, I am so sorry. Hey, next year, remind me about that so I can let people know that you actually have a tool that could have helped us with that." Well, it's too late. The competitor's already in. So understanding that decision-making criteria, what is the basis by which they're going to do that, is super important. Now, again, if you have fantastic data, not just on the quality or the quantitative side, meaning monthly active usage, if you have some qualitative data where your application actually can report back time saved and some different benefits, make sure that's part of the decision-making criteria. How will we know that the employees are satisfied with this change? How will we know that the employees are making better use of the software, right? Like, let's also add in those other components, the other metrics that we've talked about earlier in these modules. Make sure that's part of the decision-making process. The last tip that I give usually on decision-making criteria and making sure that you're setting yourself up for success is, when someone's made a purchase like this, what criteria have they utilized in the past? What I'm trying to figure out with that is what actually speaks to those that will be making that decision, right? And again, if I can find out what that criteria looks like, then what I'm doing is I'm reaching out to customers that have had that similar success. I'm saying, you know what, you mentioned this is the criteria. I would love to get XYZ company on the phone with your organization to discuss how we were able to accomplish that with them. And I let those two have a conversation. Now I'm calling my customer that's going to give this referral for me, and I'm going to say, hey, one of their concerns is they didn't take advantage of our software in these aspects because they didn't follow the best practices like you did. Would you mind, when you're walking them through how you got the success, the steps that it took to take that and accomplish that? So decision-making criteria is a key component that most software applications, they're being held up against. You need to understand what that criteria is because it changes every year. And this is the chance to find out if you're competing against anybody else in that criteria. Thank you for joining us for our SaaS therapy today. And we hope that this week, as you go through that decision-making criteria, that you'll be armed with asking the right questions to improve those most important relationships, your customers. Thank you.